If you don't know it yet, we do have WNBA star Brittney Griner, who is set to make an appearance in a Russian court tomorrow. So this is again ahead of her trial, and Griner was taken into custody. She was detained back in February on drug charges. There's been a lot of people fighting for her to be released, as it's now been more than 130 days. Here to speak a little bit more about it is Aron Solomon. He is joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Aron, I know you're going to help give us some legal analysis into what exactly to expect, especially as the Russian courts, well, they don't operate quite like they do here in the United States. What can we expect to see happening inside of that courtroom tomorrow?
It's going to be totally foreign for us in North America to watch what's happening in this Moscow court. Because unlike in the United States, where our court system is supposed to be about justice, what happens in a criminal trial in Russia is essentially it's the judge reciting a bunch of facts to get them into the record. In fact, the judge is going to do more work than the prosecution over the next few days in essentially reciting these facts to have them become part of the record. And the end result, I can tell you right now, not because I have some kind of legal crystal ball, it's because 99% of defendants in Russian criminal trials are guilty. The other 1% gets retried, and 99% of those are guilty. The end result will absolutely be Brittney Griner being found guilty of all of the charges.
Right. You know, one of the things that a lot of people wanted to know was what kind of evidence may be presented, but that too, there could only be one piece of evidence, and that could be the one that they need, that she did indeed bring this oil into the country where it's illegal to have.
Whether or not she did, they have pictures from the airport where she was stopped and detained. Supposedly, the drug dog in Moscow's main international airport smelled something in her suitcase. That in itself is going to be submitted into evidence. If this were in the United States, the defense would have an opportunity to argue against the sufficiency and essentially the veracity of that evidence. And that's not what happens in Russia. Just those pictures themselves are going to be seen as being dispositive by a Russian court of Griner's guilt.
So when we're thinking about the way that their court operates, as you said, you know, it more so is the judge kind of the one who may be asking some questions. They also, when I was reading about it, they can also decide to take a long period of pause time if they're waiting for other evidence maybe to come in. So let's just kind of go into what should her defense team be doing for Brittney during this time?
Her defense team is going to be very limited procedurally in what they can do. They can try to ensure that her rights under Russian laws are being adhered to, but you've got to remember something very visceral that we don't think of in the United States about this case. She's not going to be sitting next to her lawyers in a bench. Almost certainly, she's going to be in the same position most defendants are in a Russian courtroom, which is she's going to be in a steel cage in the courtroom as all of this is going on. It would blow most of our viewers' minds if they understood the condition of defendants in a Russian criminal trial. So her defense is going to try to do the best they can do. But again, this is a Russian defense team. It's not in the Russian defense team's interest to argue against the needs, benefits, and perspective of the Russian state.
And what about us here at home? Is there anything the American government can do to try to help possibly get her released or do a trade? I know that's something that a lot of people have been asking about to have happen as well.
Brittney Griner has been wrongfully detained. This is what the U.S. government said, which means that he's a political prisoner. Everybody watching this needs to put pressure on the government to get Brittney Griner home. This is an easy win for President Biden and the Democrat Party, because if they can actually bring her home, everybody's going to celebrate. This is arguably the greatest American basketball player, woman basketball player in history. She's going to be found guilty. She's going to be sentenced to 10 years of hard labor, prison camp, or a Russian prison. And then, as you said, it's going to be a question of what do the Americans and the Russians see as a fair trade for Brittney Griner. The problem, I would add, is that these trades can take an awfully long time.
And hearing that what she's facing is up to 10 years in prison, as you mentioned just a second ago, you know, that could mean going to a work camp or some sort. It's most likely that she would end up getting that full sentencing handed down to her.
Of course, it's not like the United States. Even if she was sentenced to 10 years, she doesn't get out in 4 or 5. She would serve every single day of that 10-year sentence unless there was a way to make a trade. And the reason we're going through this trial beginning tomorrow is because once she's found guilty, this gives the Russians more leverage they have in a trade than they have today, where she's simply being detained.
So any idea how long then that process could be drawn out? Or as you mentioned, are they going to want to try to hand down that guilty verdict right away to try to use that as more leverage against the U.S.?
Well, because honestly, it's a kangaroo court. It could happen in a couple hours, or it could take weeks to put the pressure on the Americans to see what Brittney Griner has to go through sitting in a cage in a Moscow courtroom. This would be really great TV for the Russians to show this around the world.
Well, and speaking of TV, that's something else that a lot of people were questioning was, are there going to be cameras allowed inside of the courtroom? Of course, cameras in Russia alone, the media alone, already operated there by the state. So you do have a select few who might be inside of that courtroom, but it won't be like there's a jury that they're going to be presenting information in front of. There won't be a lot of others. Her family won't even be able to be there.
Oh, absolutely not. Any kind of media that comes out of the Brittney Griner trial is going to be very carefully scripted by the Russian state. The only news that's going to come out of this trial is via the mouthpiece of Russian state media. That's just the way it goes.
Yeah, it's just interesting to see how they kind of do things differently when it comes to their hearings in their courtroom, rather us, and especially at a time when there's a lot of conflict between the United States and Russia. Of course, they're going to try to use this as much as possible to help them with other issues that they want to try to iron out with the U.S. Anything else you think important to add when it comes to this hearing and when it comes to our WNBA star facing these big charges?
I think the most important thing is that none of us on social media get suckered into the game that Russia wants us to play, which is to talk about Brittney's guilt or innocence. Brittney will 100% be found guilty within the Russian context. We need to be using traditional and social media to put pressure on the U.S. government to bring her home.
Right. Yeah, I know a lot of people have been trying to voice that opinion ever since she was detained. And again, it's been a very long time. I'm sure it's been very hard on her and her family and, of course, her fellow teammates as well. And we just hope that something more can be done. We do appreciate all the insight that you've been giving to us. Again, Aron Solomon joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Thanks so much, Aron, for being here and helping us get a few more details on what to expect with this court case.
Thanks for having me, Christy.